Welcome to Turning the Page, a Lexington Public Library podcast. I'm Miriam Adarat.
And I'm Erin West. If you love the library because of books, the programs, and the people behind both, then this is the podcast for you.
And even if you don't, there's still fun to be had. We will bring you the latest book releases that are worth checking out, figuratively and literally.
And we will discuss all of the happenings at the library to look out for.
And of course, what would a library podcast be without a special guest? We will get to know some special authors that are making an impact on our local literary scene.
Whether you're listening to us in your car while washing dishes or snuggled up with a warm drink, we are grateful for your time and hope you enjoy. Hi everyone, Erin here. Today's episode is a little different than our usual episodes. On April 9th, 2025, Miriam hosted Nikky Finney, renowned poet and professor, for an intimate conversation and question and answer session at Northside Branch. We recorded that conversation to share with our podcast audience. Miriam and I hope that you enjoy this episode as much as we did. Special thanks go to Brian Klausing at the Digital Studio for the audio setup and recording of this episode.
Go ahead and get started tonight. I'm so excited for this event, as I'm sure you guys all are. We enjoyed listening to Nikky Finney read last night, and I'm so excited to have her here just for us here at the Lexington Public Library. Before I get started, I really want to thank the Northside Branch staff for hosting us tonight, and I want to thank Ashley with A Likely Story. It's a bookstore out of Midway. We will be offering book selling at the end of the event, and Nikky will be signing books, so hang around for that. So Nikky Finney does not need an introduction, but I'll go ahead and do that. So Professor Nikky Finney is an award-winning poet and has spent her career highlighting the Southern cultural and political heritage of Black people in ways that resonate throughout the country and the world. Her love of writing and poetry began during her childhood in South Carolina, and even at a young age, she would start taking note of how the world revolves around her. And she starts putting her reflections on paper. She would pursue her calling in the literary world by earning her bachelor's degree in English literature at Talladega College in 1979. The influence of the civil rights and Black arts movement and her parents' social activism led her to pursue additional education in African American studies at Atlanta University. In her career of more than 30 years, Finney has written 6 books and hundreds of poems and essays that explore and confront the experiences that have shaped the life in the South for herself and countless other African Americans. Her most recent book, Love Child's Hotbed of Occasional Poetry, is an enduring love song to her father and 400 years of African American fight and ingenuity. In 1989, Lexington was lucky enough to become her home when she was a visiting professor of English at the University of Kentucky. During her time here, she published her award-winning work, Rice, as well as her 3rd book of poetry, The World is Round. Nikky Finney's work has attracted awards from organizations across the country, including the Penn American Open Book Award in 1999 and the Benjamin Franklin Award for Poetry in 2004. Several awards from the Kentucky Arts Council and the Kentucky Foundation for Women, the Aiken Taylor Award from the Sewanee Review and the University of the South, the Wallace Stevens Award given annually by the Academy of American Poets to recognize outstanding and proven mastery in the art of poetry, and of course, the National Book Award for Poetry in 2011 for the book Head Off and Split. And if you haven't listened to her acceptance speech for that award, you have to go on YouTube and listen to it. You will be floored. Currently, Nikky Finney is the Chancellor of the American Academy of Poets and recently inducted into the American Academy of Arts and Letters. She has recently been appointed the Executive Director of the newly launched Ernest Finney Jr. Cultural Arts Center in Columbia, South Carolina. It's a 21st century arts and cultural center named after her father. So please welcome Nikky Finney. thank you so much for agreeing to come to Lexington and do this event for us. It is April, the Poetry Month, and of course, we are celebrating 250 years of Lexington, and this is the Literary Month, so it's only appropriate to have Nikky Finney here to join us, and I really, really appreciate you coming. So I wanted to start off by getting to know you a little bit better. And I know we have some young people in our audience that maybe are not as familiar with you.
There might be some old people who might not be familiar.
So take us back to young Nikky growing up in South Carolina. What was she like, and what inspired you to take on the written word?
First of all, hello, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. And it's great to see you. It's great to be here. It's great to meet you. And it's great to be in a library.
Yeah.
It is a sacred space for me. And when the invitation, it always will be. And this arcs back into your question, Miriam. But when I did not know that I would become a writer, it was the subversive activity of librarians feeding me books that I was literally too young to have, but they knew I needed, that pushed me to the line to write. Because in public schools and in institutions and organizations that have rules and laws about what, there is the individual librarian who can spot a child who needs a book in order to make a higher journey.
Yeah.
And so it is those librarians working within the system and within their own belief in the literary arts. That's why I'm sitting here. So I always want to say, for anybody who has been touched and stamped, if you will, by the library like I have, I will always fight for this institution and its right not only to exist, but to do the kind of work it does in a community like Lexington, like the north side of Lexington. And so, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the work that we must do in every community that we can. And it was in the library that the Carnegie Library in the town that I grew up in, Sumter, South Carolina, was segregated when I was probably up into the early 70s. I was born in 1957. So when I was 12 or 13, my father and I would say 10 other Black couples, families, sued the city of Sumter, South Carolina, so that their children could go to the public library and get books. And it was, I was in Catholic school at the time. We also were pulled out of Catholic school. And my father I remember having a meeting at the dinner table, which is where we always had meetings. And he said, look, I know you love your school, but there's a bigger issue here. And we're going to pull you out of this school because we are also going to bring a lawsuit against the city of Sumter for schools and for libraries that were not open to all people.
Yeah.
And so we did. We were pulled out of school. I began to understand the power of it's not your personal preference to be in a school that you want to be in, but you have to do something for a larger cause.
Yeah.
And so
And make that sacrifice.
Yeah. And so that I was stamped early about, it's not what you want, it's what you must do. And so they sued the school and they sued the library system. And just before the verdict came back, they both relented in their own way and allowed Black students to attend those schools. So,
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So that kind of triggered your journey into activism. And by the way, most libraries were segregated at that time still.
Yep.
Unfortunately. That is a history that we have to reckon with.
But I also want to say that at home, when we were 2 hours out of the hospital, 2 hours old, my mom sat us in her lap with a stack of books. So before I got to the library, which is where she was sending me, she would say, sit, she would read to us. So I fell in love with the written word. I fell in love with the spoken word. I fell in love with orality of language through my mother's voice. And she read to us every night. My brothers became lawyers and I became a poet. You can tell the person who was listening closest, right? So I credit my mom, who went to the HBCU Claflin University, where she met my dad, with becoming an early childhood educator, teaching in the school systems with my love for language.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So you are the daughter of a civil rights attorney, Ernest A. Finney Jr., the first African-American Supreme Court justice appointed to the South Carolina Supreme Court, this is something I did not know until I started doing research for this event. Tell us about his influence on your work.
Tell the truth.
Yeah. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
Yeah.
My father was incredibly a man of his time. My father did not mind and did not bat an eye about stepping out on his own and confronting the issues of the day. So 3 things that I remember brilliantly in all their light were the civil rights issues of the day, segregation, making the world fair for all people, which he did not have to stand alone with. He stood with many, many people in that community to push legislation through. But the thing that he's many times stood by himself about was when he became a member of the House of Representatives and when he became a member of the Court of South Carolina, which was very conservative. And he refused to vote for any kind of death penalty legislation. He was adamant that he was a human being, and it was not his place to say whether somebody should live or die because of what they had done. And so I learned very early that it takes incredible courage and incredible self-understanding about being able to stand alone about what is right in the world. And we can come back to that question in these days, and we can, talk about that all day. But you have to have somebody setting an example about what you can withstand, what you are here to do, and how you do not have to be complicit in what is wrong. And my father taught me that.
Yeah. By telling the truth.
By telling the simple truth.
Simple truth.
Yeah. And I watched him. I was a girl who was very quiet, was not writing. It's not, the thing about becoming a writer is not so much when you pick up the pen. It's what happens before you pick up the pen. And the influences that come your way and stamp you in a certain kind of way, so that when you pick up the pen, you understand what your job is and what you need to be writing about.
Yeah.
So it's not, I love the technical act of writing words down and writing phrases down and building the house of a poem or understanding the architecture. But it is before you pick up the pen, what you understand moves your heart, what you are unwilling to turn a blind eye to, what you are not willing to pretend you don't see, so that when you do pick up the pen, like my father, who said, "Yes, you've given. I've made this ascent. I'm ascending in all the right ways, but I'm not going to get to this spot and then not say what I believe to be right in the world."
Yeah.
I talk to my students all the time about integrity. We don't talk to our young people enough about what it means to have integrity as an individual human being in a world full of, 10 billion other people. And if we did that more, you would understand how much what you believe has to be fought for, and not just say, well, there's nothing I can do. People are going to do what they're going to do. I didn't come up in that kind of community.
Yeah.
So I hope that I didn't want to write those kinds of things, but I understood my own sort of individual power in a world full of very diverse people thinking very different kinds of things.
Yeah. I didn't write this question down, but when you said to tell the truth, that really kind of resonated with me. In your poetry, there's a lot of, you strive for justice, but that goes hand in hand with truth. But so does mercy.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of that also in your poetry.
Absolutely.
To show mercy to even those that oppress you.
Mercy is important.
Yeah.
Was important to my father.
Yes.
Important to me. Walking judiciously. What? Forgive me for not knowing the quote from the Bible about, I think it's Micah 4:3, about loving justice, walking humbly, and to do mercy. That is was my father's most, when he passed in 2017, that was on the program because it was what he lived by.
Wow. As I mentioned in my introduction, you lived in Lexington.
Yes.
We claim you as our own.
Yes.
Even though you weren't born here.
He trained me.
You taught at the University of Kentucky. So what drew you to Lexington?
Here's the story. I'm the midnight manager at Kinko's Copies in Oakland, California.
Wow.
Thinking romantically that I would become a poet by working at Kinko's, taking my poems and Xeroxing them and sending them out into the world. Not a good story. South Carolina Arts Commission has a program, invites me home. I have one book that's coming out, and that's how I got on their program. I became legitimate in that moment. And so I'm on panel with the great American novelist Percival Everett. Who's now all the rage.
The author of James.
The author of
If
James.
you guys not have read that,
Right.
please do.
And so I'm sitting by Percival, who is from Columbia, South Carolina.
Yes.
But is a very unknown writer at the time in 1985. Nobody knows Percival, even though at the time he's written 20 novels. He's now written like 40. And, because of the movies and because of James, he's become. So I'm sitting next to him and I don't know him. He doesn't know me. He goes, "Well, what are you doing in California? I hear you have a book out." And I said, "Yeah, I'm working at Kinko's." And he goes, "What?" I said, "I'm working at Kinko's." And he goes, and he leaves and comes back and he says, "Would you be open to coming to the University of Kentucky for a visiting writer's position, 9 months, 9 months only?" And I said, "I'm open to that." Yeah, because I didn't think he was gone. People say all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm open to it. Contact me. Here's my number. And he called me back a week later after the panel and after he heard what I had to say and after we talked a little bit and he kind of got to know me. And he said, "We are offering you 9 months to come to the University of Kentucky for a visiting writer's position." I'm working at Kinko's.
In California.
I don't have an MFA degree. I don't have the pedigree, if you will, for what he's opening the door for. So I'm 29 years old. I realize that I'm going to not work at Kinko's the rest of my life, or at least I hope I'm not. And you understand when an opportunity knocks that you need to put your hands around it. So I did, and I moved from Oakland. I took the job. I got my dental insurance, which I was terrified of not having. Because those things become important to you as you grow older and 30 years old. You don't
adulting.
Yeah. And so I came to Lexington. I'd never been in Kentucky before. Never taught in the university setting before. Taught in libraries, in the back, in one of those rooms where you do a little community poetry workshop. And I had to teach myself how to write a syllabus. I had to teach myself what was expected of me. This is pre-Google, okay? There's no Googling this in 5 seconds. So I became my curious self. The library made me curious. It made me understand how information was in the library. Went to the library, got a book on how to write a syllabus, how to do a Vita. All those things are at your fingertips in the library. You just have to be leaning forward and not leaning away.
Yes.
And so I got the job, and not only did I get the job, but I fell in love with teaching. I fell in love with my students. My students fell in love with me. And by the end of the year, the chair, I was packing up going to go back to California, and he said, "We've just had a meeting with the English department, and your reviews, your things that your students are saying about you are phenomenal, and we want you to come back."
Yeah.
And I was like, I only came here for 1 year. I wasn't coming to me. And I ended up coming back for the next 26 years. I mean, this is a different story. I came for 5 years and went through the processes that I did not expect to do, assistant professor, associate professor, and those kinds of things. I found that Kentucky, and this is really, really, and this is why when you sent this invitation to me, I really wanted to come. And I always want to come home. This is one of my homes. I became a writer here. I found my voice as a writer here. I found the Appalachian poets here. I found a circle of young Black poets who are still my friends, who are still in my community, who was, Frank Walker was chiseling out a place for voices in this community.
Yes.
And I was of the age where I was just finding my voice. So this was an incredible nurturing space for me in those first days. I was also understanding that the time you spend with people also comes out in your work that you do. I met Crystal Wilkinson, who was here, and Kelly Norman Ellis, and people who, sisters, people who became my family.
Yeah.
And so I knew I wanted to stay and write more books and write poems. And I just did that. I put my head down, and I had an incredible English department that was incredibly supportive of me. And, and me not being a person who had I had work ethic.
Yes.
I had passion for my students. I told the truth, and I wasn't afraid to tell the truth here, and they could hear it here. And so I knew that this was a place that I should not take for granted lightly, because I knew that those places weren't, they were few and far between. I found the Carnegie Center. I found a carrel on the side of the room where I wrote my second book. Because in the place where I was staying, which was a basement apartment in Lexington, I didn't have a space. There was no sunlight coming to the windows. So in the Carnegie Center, I found a window that I could write the poems that I wrote. And so there was all these things in Lexington saying, stay.
Yeah.
We're not so bad. We can take care of you. We can help nurture you. You don't have to call us home. But I eventually, when I realized that I was becoming the writer I had dreamed of becoming, Lexington became home.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's another story about the Head Off and Split book that has stamped me for the rest of my life. But when I was nominated, and this is arcing forward, of course, from 1989 to 2011.
Yeah.
It's a big gap of time, right? I remember when the 5 finalist names came out. I'm a walker, so I was walking downtown, and there was a guy that I'd bought some antique things from, like a table, a sidebar, and he was sweeping up in front of his business. And this is how I've never lived in a city that loves books so much.
That's the truth. I buy the books for the library, and I will tell you, the city loves their books.
I have never. If you don't know a lot of cities, mid-sized Lexington. I mean, I live in Columbia, South Carolina, capital of South Carolina, right? They don't love books like this. I'm sorry. You can quote me, you can tell them, but they don't love. I would go to Eastern Kentucky, up in the mountains. Kids would come out of the woodwork, 15, 16-year-olds. I get goosebumps when I think about it. Books in a bag.
Yeah.
All the stereotypes about who reads, who holds stories close, crashed, shattered. Go get a train and go up from Lexington up to Washington, D.C., and you meet people getting on the train from in little hollers. They get on the train, they open up a book.
Yeah.
So I knew that this was a place where people had lied about. People loved books here.
Yeah.
And so back to the story. So I'm walking, and the guy's with the broom. He's sweeping in front of his store. They've announced the 5 finalists for the National Book Award 2011. And he goes, "Hey, I can't remember the table you were looking at, but you're going to win the National Book Award."
Wow.
And I was like, "Don't say that.
Don't jinx it.
Don't jinx me, man. I don't even know you that well." He said, "No, I know you're going to win." He kept sweeping. And I must have walked 5 miles that morning with his words in, because I didn't think I was going to win, because I'm with Audrey and Rich and Bruce Weigel and Yusef Kamanyaka. These are my teachers, right?
Yeah.
And so the possibility was not apparent to me like that. I was just glad I was in the mix, glad you're in the number, right? And I wanted to go and, tell the truth.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the thing that I was taught as a little girl. So I felt it was an incredible opportunity. Okay, last thing about that. I come home. Morris Bookstore is still open. Morris Bookstore sold 1,000 copies of Head Off and Split.
Yeah.
If you don't understand that means, the equation is you can not sell 1,000 books in a lifetime as a poet. It just doesn't happen. They sold 1,000 and I signed every one.
Wow.
Can you come? Yeah, I'll be there in 5 minutes. And I would just go and sign these books because people in Lexington wanted to support me, wanted to have a copy. And I don't think it'll ever happen again in my life with the kind of fervor and emotional.
Never say never.
Well,
Never say never.
it will never be like that. It was something that really marked me for the people in Lexington loving their literary voices and loving to support them in that way.
Yeah.
So
Well, you left a huge footprint here that reverberated like throughout the literary community here. And even though you're no longer living here, it's still there. It resonates with a lot of young poets, up and coming poets especially. Who were the people that you read that inspired you, that made you ache to be, the great poet that you are today?
Well, I think it's really important to look at when you are born and who's around and who's writing. I mean, everybody's story is different, but the Black arts movement I was born in 1957, so by the time I got to be 15, which is when I grew my big afro because Angela Davis had an afro, that was the mark of, you might be a little outside the norm here. And then there was this great love for Afrocentricity and African things happening when we were calling each other African names and using products. And, there was a great cultural movement. And I was a young teenager who was affected by that. You can be that proud? Uh-oh, here we go. Let's digest. Let's do this. And so Sonia Sanchez and Gwendolyn Brooks and Alice Walker and, oh my God, Toni Morrison, not just poets, but Black women who were using words to make their way.
Yeah.
And using not just, Toni K. Bambara, I was in her writing workshop in Atlanta. And, she had a huge impact on what I did with words, who stopped me in a workshop one day when I was writing all these pretty poems. Oh, that's so pretty, Nikky. Oh, that lyricism. Oh, that's nice. The metaphor. Oh, she was like, okay, so what else can you do but write pretty? Tell the truth. Can I put those two things together? Yeah. Okay. So this was the time when people were unafraid to tell the truth. They were emboldened by their culture, by their history. They were learning their history. They were passing it on in a myriad of different ways. The streets were filled with people who were fighting for LGBTQ rights and women's rights, and all kinds of pushes and forces were entering the mainstream.
Yeah.
and causing fractures and fissures, if you will, in what was considered normalcy and the traditions, right? And what was the canon. And so I was a part of the young person witnessing those elders, the loss of Nikki Giovanni last year. She was, in her early 80s. So that generation ahead of me was passing back those things that I wanted to put my hands around as a young writer. But I didn't want to sound like them. I didn't want to write like them. I knew that I had my own way of speaking that I needed to nurture.
Your own voice, your
My
own
own
space.
It's, I didn't want to be jumping up on a table saying the same thing somebody else was saying, jumping up on a table. I wanted to write pretty,
Mhm.
but I wanted to tell the truth as well.
Yeah. Your activism and the civil rights movement is a predominant anchor in your poetry. Activism can be both an exhilarating experience, an exhilarating practice, especially when you have a network of support, a group that can hold you up in those difficult times. But it can also be incredibly draining, an isolating endeavor. What advice do you give to your students and other young activists that are taking up the torch, so to speak?
Well, I think, life can be draining. Don't I don't really sort of buy into the bag that, because I believe in activism, that is suddenly putting me into a position of um putting me in a position of being vulnerable, more vulnerable than somebody else. What don't we all choose how we use our time, and we all choose what we do with our day and our nights and our poetry. And I don't again, there's a way that I think we scare people away from the word, from the action of activism,
Mm,
because it is exhausting. But so is gardening or something else. Life is full of struggle.
yeah.
And I think we don't say that enough to young people or to each other, that struggle is good. Struggle isn't to be avoided. Struggle is a good thing. It teaches us what we're made of. It teaches us what we're bound by. It teaches us who came before us. It teaches us how to pass on something to somebody else, and that's a good thing. Um,
That's an incredible perspective.
It's important
Yeah.
to look at it like that, because when you look at it like something like, oh, this gonna take something out of you, so is childbirth, so is marriage, so is graduating, getting your GED. It's gonna take something out of you. So is carving, LaVon Van Williams carving a piece of out of a tree. It's gonna take something out of you, but it's also gonna put something in you,
Mm.
and we have
Can you
to.
say that again?
It's
Seriously.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It's gonna take something out of you, but if you're doing it for the right reason, if you're in it because you can't be out of it, it's gonna add something to who you are. It's gonna give you something that nothing else will give you,
Mm.
because you're fighting for something that humanity needs, that your community needs, empathy, that empathy thing, not sympathy, but that empathy thing is what we are so missing.
Yeah.
We need to talk about that, and we need to understand that when I teach and I realize that my students don't know the difference between empathy and sympathy,
Mhm.
I become like a worm in wood. I'm just like, you need to know this as a human being in the word, because I know that's what's missing from our power dynamics and the big conversations that what we're afraid to have, right? Um, so I don't know what I was talking about, but yeah.
We heard it.
Okay.
We heard it. Can you share with us some of your favorite spots and memories of Lexington during your time here? Where did you go to
Mm.
get inspiration or just to kind of clear your mind for writing?
I walked a lot. I love the woods. I love the Kentucky River.
Mm.
I love One of the things I loved about being here was the seasons, and I have great memories of um snow.
Mhm.
We don't get that in the subtropics of South Carolina anymore.
We'll share.
Yeah.
We don't mind sharing.
Yeah, I had so many addresses in Lexington. I must have had 10. And so all of those communities that were different, but near the university. Um, but I didn't have it wasn't a particular place. Again, I just like to walk and kind of get a little lost. I did develop a habit, an editorial habit that helps me to this day, which is when I can't figure out something I'm writing, I get in my car and I take my kitchen timer and I set it on 30 minutes and I drive down a Kentucky road, 2-lane only, and no lights, no, a back road, a horse farm road, a place I didn't really know where I was going. And by the time I drove down that road and the 30-minute timer went off, I had figured it out. I figured out what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. And then I would turn around and come back home. And there's something about the forward motion of the car, or the forward motion of my body walking forward, that without hindrance, without a light or somebody stopping me, that really taught me how physical bodily movement is a part of my construction and building of a poem or getting to the core of an idea.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of the things that I loved about being here is I don't know where this came from, but I didn't know Kentucky when I first got here. I mean, every state has stereotypes and things that you hear about them. But some of the most nurturing, caring, telling the truth people that I've ever met in my life were here. Of all colors, from all communities, the mountains, in the cities, who would give you the shirt off their back to be in your presence if you needed it. And I never forgot the soulfulness of people here. It really stays with me to this day. Georgella Lyon is one of my buddies. I love her. Oh,
We all love Georgella Lyon.
you don't love her like I love her. Can I read something that I took a picture of? I'm staying with
Sure.
friends. You sure?
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
So I gave this poem to my friend that I'm staying with in her house. She has it in a frame, and I took a picture of it today, and I was going to send it to Georgella, but for some reason your phone number is not in my phone, so we have to fix that. But it's from 2011, and it's illustrated by Carolyn Weitzel, and it's printed by October Press, and it's in a shape of a bee hive. It's just the most beautiful poem, so I gotta read it to you. It's called Inviting the Queen. I did something. I had just moved from Cleveland to play with the Atlanta Symphony and discovered bees in a tree in my backyard. I didn't know what to do. Someone gave me the name of a professor, and I called him. Now, I'd just arrived, as I said, and I couldn't tell a black Southern accent from a white one. It was all Southern to me. So that night, I came home from a concert to find a large black man in my backyard with a ladder. It was the professor. He came up to me and held out a small box. "I've got the queen," he said. Little by little, in the next few days, the rest will follow. In a week, they'll all be gone. "How did you do that?" I asked. And he said, "I listened until my heart could hear her heart. Then I invited her to come."
Wow. Wow. Isn't that great? Yes.
That is a poem.
Yes, it sure is.
That is telling the truth. She did that.
Yeah. Incredible. Well, I get to interview local authors for the podcast for the library. And I always have to resist the urge in asking them to pick a favorite work, because it's kind of like asking them to pick a favorite child. right? So I won't ask you that. But there has to be a piece of writing that lingered with you, that kind of stayed with you for a while, that you struggled to release out into the world. Do you have that piece for you?
I struggle with every piece. There's no, oh, I mean, it is. It's like writing is struggling over the page and struggling over the thing. I mean, there's so many different kinds of struggle. Um, like when you were talking and I was thinking about how in this book there's a piece about how I became a limo driver and picked up Toni Morrison from the Nobel laureate
Oh, wow.
awards, right? And my favorite thing about, I'm not going to read that because it's too long. But one of the things I love about that piece is that people write me and say, "Did you really pick up Toni Morrison from the Nobel laureate award? And did you really wear a chauffeur's hat? And how did you get there? And what did you?" And what all a writer wants to know is that you believe them.
Yeah.
So whether you ask me whether it was true or not, yeah, if you got that far, it was true.
I love that.
I got young poets who don't want to lie. I love them for that.
Yeah.
Get over it. Do some lying. Do some good lying so that I'm with you, so that I take that journey with you. And that's really important. So
yeah. It's storytelling.
It's storytelling.
Yeah.
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 I don't know. Yeah, I really there's yeah. There's sometimes, and I was like, I don't know if I should put that piece in there, but there are so many good struggles that you have with writing. Are you trying to get me to read something?
Yes, please.
Oh.
Yes. Share your reading, your work with us tonight, because that's why everybody's here anyway. They don't want to hear me talking.
It's hunting season, and I'm driving Highway 26 across the Congaree River. One exit remains before my exit home. A man is coming toward me riding against the traffic. He is a man who should not be riding his bicycle in the emergency lane of this dangerous highway, but he is. He rides fast as if he is being chased, but no one is behind him. He rides fast as if he knows he only has a small window of time. He is holding on to the wobbling bike handles with only his right hand. The front legs of a 10-point buck are curled around his right shoulder. The buck's 10-point antlers, his half-closed eyes, open, gaping mouth, and dangling tongue are held near the bicyclist's dark brown left cheek. His left arm is locked in place. I slow down as he passes by to be sure I am seeing what I'm really seeing. A black man on a bright orange bike on a 4-laner with a dead deer splayed across his shoulders like a mink. There is blood dripping down his white shirt, but his smile is as wide as the Congaree River. His fast pedaling legs tell me this winter will be different. This winter, in his shotgun of a house, there will be meat.
As we talk about struggle.
I'm just driving to my mama's house and I see this guy. And so one of the things about being a poet is not turning away from what you see, not thinking it's not a poem, thinking that it has to be something neon and that was a poem. It's up to me to see it, because it's about looking and seeing and then pulling over on the side of the road and trying to capture the things that I want to write about.
Yeah.
Later.
It's noticing those simple.
It's noticing.
It's noticing people.
It's noticing.
It's noticing situations.
How else is he gonna arrive in a poem if I don't write it?
Yeah.
Who's going to write it? Who's going to care about him? Who's going to care about the blood dripping down his shirt or the buck's tongue hanging out? I mean, it's like this is what I care about. I want to see him as a part of the landscape, of the culture. I want to see him as something important. So if he's important, I'm going to take time with him. And so what we deem important as writers, we put on the page.
Yeah. You add value. You add value to the simple things.
So now when you leave and you see somebody who somebody else might either totally dismiss, ignore as somebody valuable, maybe you'll see him in a different light. I'm not trying to make you see him in a different light. I'm trying to write pretty, but also insert him into the landscape as something you should not dismiss or hit with your car.
Yeah. Give us some more.
This is the first time that I ever had a poem etched with acid in glass. And it's the poem that's at the Lyric Theater. And I won't read the whole thing probably, but on the occasion of the reopening of the Lyric Theater, 1940s Dream House, Black Dream House, Lexington, Kentucky. On the East End, we shine our own shoes, dress our own legs, smooth down willful hair, let all new trouble float. Done up. We promenade and pass due east, do as you please, and third, where Winkfield and Murphy once hoofed and flew backwards, black winged on horseback. Under the blazing marquee, we hand our shiny quarter over, glide toward then across our 8-point star. Rose tile light of regeneration. In the dark theater, the salt cod sweat of work now left behind, names hurled our way all day, now set aside, paychecks that never match our labor folded away now. House lights dim. Paul Robeson is Othello. Miss Ella strikes and swings. The Duke and Count Jazz juice the night. Royalty speaks to royalty. The ink spots spill with Sarah Vaughan. Miss Mahaley orchestrates and moans and moonbeams. Candy Johnson and his peppermint sticks fill every inch of stage. Marian Anderson poses her hands in alto, soprano. Power.
That's a lovely tribute to an iconic landmark here in Lexington.
History. It's like, we got to know who's been here and who's here and who couldn't go to other places and could only go to the Lyric.
Yeah.
And if we don't pass that information on, then we don't use that space in the way that it needs to be used and treated in a community.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You want to share anything else with us, or is that it? This is your latest work, isn't it?
Yeah.
Love Child's Hotbed of Occasional Poetry, and that's what she's reading from.
A crazy book.
Yeah. A crazy book?
A crazy book.
Why is it crazy?
Because it's
got all kinds of things in it. It's got pictures and all kinds of, it's almost like
it has a letter in it from my father. It has letters in it from my father. It has a letter in it from me from 1968 to my mom, who was away getting her degree in something, and it was the first time she was away from home. And it has things that started my life, my career as a poet, my rejection letter, a letter from William Morrow when I was 26, accepting the book. It's a collage. And because I'm incredibly visually oriented, I wanted to put together a book that.
And you name each piece hotbed number.
So I'm a gardener, and a hotbed for me is not as lurid as it sounds. A hotbed for me is when I put the seed in the ground and grow it to a sprout and then move it outside to the yard. And so the hotbed numbers here are those places in my journal books, which I've kept since I was 15, where the piece first takes root.
Mm.
And those narrative prose poems become later where I do more architectural things.
Yes.
Yeah, so I wanted to sort of try my hand with that. But I'll just read one more, and I got to read this one about my father. And my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I moved home in 2013. I left Kentucky. I wonder would I have ever left if my father had not been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. But he was my hero, and I wasn't going to let anybody else take care of him. And so I think that we have to have those kind of conversations with our children too. He didn't want me to give up anything that I was going for, but I also wasn't gonna not take care of him. So I went home to take care of him with my mom. And this is just one of many moments where we were taking him to the hospital for his diagnosis. His ability to swallow has left Earth. Mama and I are squeezed inside one chair meant for two, inside a tiny room behind the swallowing monitor on the 3rd floor of the hospital. We are being saved from the radiation being used in order to look inside Daddy's throat. A monitor in front of us allows us to see the test as it happens. His swallowing has gotten more difficult these last several weeks. We are here to witness the great swallowing test that will tell all. It is the test that can save him from pneumonia, but also take away the last human pleasure his body will ever know. The test is divided into applesauce, Jell-O, honey, a cracker, a sip of water. Daddy doesn't understand what's going on. He doesn't know any of the strangers who are trying to help him. I can feel him feeling lost. The top of my father's spine suddenly pops into the screen. My mother gasps as if she has never seen him this naked. I am watching the full anatomy of Daddy's throat unfold like a movie on the monitor. It is like watching a puppet show. There are so many tiny marionette strings involved. Swallowing has a rhythm and is a production. There is stage right and left. One action releases another. They want to see if the foods he regularly eats are going down and landing where they should. My eye is on the Jell-O, waiting at the top of his tongue, like an Olympic diver on a high board. He looks around the room for anything familiar. I wave so he will know he is not alone. He waves back when he sees me. Swallow, Daddy, swallow. I touch my own throat and make a swallowing motion to try and translate what my words don't seem to be relaying. But the squared red diver on the high board has forgotten all his training, how to tuck and roll his legs, how to leap into the precious air of the esophagus.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Thank you so much for sharing your work with us. And at this time, I want to open up the floor for questions from the audience. If you have any questions for Nikky. Yes, go ahead.
I'm curious, you mentioned that you are visual, and that's visual art, what you do. Have you tried your hand at ekphrastic kinds of?
Oh, yeah, it's ekphrastic 4 in here. The pictures are in here and on the ekphrasis. I love ekphrastic work. I go into museums looking for something to connect with that might be a new poem. I take my students in, and we talk a lot about how the eye connects with the hand in that way.
Incredible. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Yes.
Hi.
When your book started, Pete, how young did you begin? I mean, like, not published. When did you start writing? Because, it seems to me that a writer is born writing to me. So I just wanted to know, did you start seeing things that were important to you and putting it into words inside your head and were buried down?
So in the
Silly question.
oh,
Not at all.
don't change the question. The question was genius and brilliant. So repeat after me. That was a genius, brilliant question.
Yeah.
Come on. Excellent. We have to affirm ourselves when we are asking questions that we want to take in some kind of way. My mother,
I mean, you were
oh, absolutely. Two things. My mother called me her sensitive child. She didn't mean it in a nice way.
yes, my
She wanted me to harden up. Harden up, girl.
yeah.
The world's coming for your heart. World's coming for you. So you gonna leave me one day and you need to like toughen up. Because there's too many things making you cry and walk into the next room and take your pencil out and scribble down in that book. What is in that book? What do you keep writing about? My grandfather would, and the farmers on the street, on the road where he lived, would kill a hog every fall. And I'd run into the woods with my hands over my ears because I couldn't take the screaming and the hollering of that live animal about to die.
It was big.
Yeah.
So the sensitive child didn't know when she was 9, when she was writing in that journal book, that it was her superpower. But if you hang with words and if you hang with where you keep those words, I didn't even care when my brother stole the book to read what I was writing, long as I got it back and could write the next thing. It wasn't private. I just wanted to have a keeping place for it. So 9 is when I got my first journal book, and I have 189 other journal books that have come after that one in front of my bed in my bedroom. So when I wake up, I see the total body of my work because it's not about publishing always. It's about writing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay?
I think.
It's a great question. And thank you for the tears in your eyes too. Yeah. No, you also feeling you. You feeling that right leg is moving. You feeling that pig farmer in your.
Yeah.
I see you.
Yeah. There is a kindred spirit when you're reading someone's work. And, I think people feel that. And that's why you resonate with people's hearts so much. So, any other questions? Yes, sir.
And then Georgella. Oh, a poet, a real poet is in the room. Hello, sir.
Mr. Frank X. Walker.
Some of us who've known you for more than 2 years know that you're also photographers. Now, what if you could talk about the difference between looking for a photo for you and looking or what is searchable? Oh, it's same different.
Looking for, say that again.
Like when you're looking through the lens,
Yeah. Oh,
to look through the lens, something you saw that you want to capture. What's the difference between when you're doing the same thing that we're
Oh, so much difference. Looking is the first thing I'm doing through the camera. And then I begin to feel, oh, let's keep the camera right there. I want to look at this a little bit more, right? And so my uncle Billy was in the Vietnam War and he came back with a trunk of lenses. I've told this story for 40 years, 30 years at least. And there was a long telephoto lens, right? You want to get close to a subject. I want to get the dragonfly on the cow's butt in the field. put that telephoto on it, you'll get it. If I want a wide angle and I want to get every beautiful face in this room, then I put that wide angle on, and I can do that. As a poet, I can do that. Listing, you know, mad dogs, yellow dogs, red dogs, a listing you can do to get the whole room. And then if I want to get magical realism, I put in that underwater lens that kind of makes things a little wavy. Photography is a beautiful way to teach writing and creatively how to see things. But once I stop looking, Frank, then I have to take that pencil, lick the tip of it, and get to work on language. How do I bring that visual to you? Because you didn't see what I saw. So it's got to go through the toes that my grandmother gave me and the fingers that my father gave me. And it's got to come out on the page in the way that I want to say it. So there's a long, invisible process line that image that stuck with me wants to be born through me. And so I have to work on myself as the machinery. I have to drink my carrot juice, eat my tofu, have my cup of coffee in the morning, maybe a glass of red wine before I go to sleep, maybe. And I have to take care of this machine. Because if you don't take care of this, then when you see something, it's not going to come through and have anything to come through. It's going to get stopped by addiction, depression, taking care of people that you shouldn't be taking care of, bills that are It's alive. So somewhere along the line, I learned from that generation of writers you asked me about that I have to take care of myself. Not so I'm on the cover of a magazine, but so I can hear and see the poem that wants to be born. I can't stay up all hours of the night. I got to go to bed. I'm old. I got to get my rest. We don't tell young writers that. We tell them to be destructive. Run a car into a wall. See how many times you can live. That's what Western culture tells young writers. Be, what's that word? Not dramatic, but this is the brain changing. Tragic. I don't want to be tragic. I want to live a long life.
Yeah.
I want to be here and I want to write through every generation that I get to. Forget the tragic story. Leave it outside. Life is short. You will not have enough time to write everything you want to write. Right, Letha Kendrick?
Yeah.
It's another fine poet in this room. Oh my God, don't start me.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I want to know what you're working on.
I do too. So what are you working on now?
I'm working on, and I'm only going to say this one time. Don't ask me any more questions about it. It's haunting me. It's an old dream. It's a book-length poem.
We'll leave it at that.
And I write, I still write, just when I see something that I have to get my hands around, but that's what I get up at 4 a.m. to work on.
Yeah. Incredible. Any other questions before we wrap up? Yes, over here, Fred.
On craft, when you're trying to find your voice, how do you hone in on it? I got so many voices. How do you find the core voice?
Why do you have to choose one?
I don't. But
Why don't you give yourself a little space and room and write from them all? Seriously, you shouldn't be, listen to what is coming your way. And sometimes we start comparing it to somebody else's story. But if you've got several voices, work them out, write them down. They don't have to agree or get along, but they just have to be, something you really feel compelled by. Yeah.
I saw a hand in the back over there. Do you have a question?
Yes, I, sorry, I'm gonna lean on you just a sec. Last night, the poem you read, where is that? With Sipa? Is that a
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
first one to know where?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you take some time with it. I know you stopped me last night to ask me about it, and I wanted to read it because I wanted Gurney to come in the room, and I feel like it was the right thing to do. The truth is, if Gurney had not, when I got to Kentucky, he really did come in my office with more Black history than I'd ever seen about Appalachia. And he knew what he was doing. He's a sly fox of a man. And he really, he whet my appetite for knowing more because I had not heard anything about it. And then I was running, when my knees were, 30. I was running, I ran into Frank, who was on the corner of, what was that corner, Frank? Lyman Rose. And then I started realizing there was something here bubbling up from this soil and this water that could feed me, and I stayed. And so Gurney, he was on a mission.
Yeah.
He wrote me a 4-page letter at the end of my first year that said, well, I've looked at all your student comments. I've had a meeting with all the people in the department. And now we just have to get all this paperwork done for you to come back. I was like, you didn't ask me to come back. What are you talking about? I mean, he already had it in motion.
Yeah.
Right. And he knew what I needed before I kind of knew what I needed.
It seems he was that for a lot of people.
Yeah. He's an incredible human being. And I just wanted him to be in the air.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that poem last night. It was really beautiful. Yeah. All right. We're gonna wrap it up.
No.
Anybody else have any questions before I do wrap it up? One last one. Yes, sir. In the back.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I know you spoke of this really tough. Would you speak once again to the importance of history and art and culture in sustaining us in this man's words?
So, art is when you make something. I'm going to say it again. Art is when you make something. Poetry is when you make something. It's when you build something. It's when you dedicate some time to something you care deeply about. And the people that led the way for my understanding of the power of art were people who believed in a kind of world that they wanted to believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Not a world that was going to be given to them, but a world they wanted to see happen, a world that they wanted to create. And so I believe that right now, there's never been a more important time to work as a writer, as a creator of those worlds. Because the autocracy that's coming at us in so many different directions doesn't care about what we create. It has a mind of its own and it's at full steam ahead. And the Chinese dissident artist Ai Weiwei said something once that I think about every morning when I wake up. Art is when you push, not knock over, not destroy, push. I want my work. I want my words. I want the work that my students are creating in their own worlds to push against those doors that are closing in front of us. We have to do that. And art is how we have always done that. Art is how it has been done in cultures around the world. In African cultures where business doesn't start before the artist speaks, before the storyteller tells a story about what the culture was like, to remind the people making the laws of what's at stake. So if we don't do that, if we sit by and say, oh, this is going to go away, this is really not the world that I think I'm living. It is the world. And you must look at it and deal with it in the ways that you find, at your behest. But don't be silent. Don't be quiet. And don't wait for the walls to tumble down. Be active. Being an activist is just being active about something you care about profoundly and not closing your door, and get off social media.
Yes.
And go into the community and have conversations that need to be had with each other, because now's the time. I mean, I can't say it any better than that. You're coming out today and wanting to be involved in it. I love this kind of conversation more than almost anything I do as a poet. There's some artists and poets who don't like this part. They want to just write the thing and give it to you and make you buy it or hope you buy it. But this is where we connect on all the levels of being a human being. And I really very deeply appreciate you coming out today. And I hope that before I turn 100, you invite me back.
Definitely. Yeah, there's open invitation for you, Nikky.
Thank you.
All the time
Thank
here.
you, library.
Thank you so much. And thank you guys for attending. Thank you for tuning into Turning the Page. If you enjoyed listening, there will be more to come, so please give us a follow so that you don't miss the next episode.
We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.